That was the Gary Moore Band playing us into this special edition of Rockschool. We'll be hearing more from Gary later.
One of the things we did throughout the series of Rockschool was to record the programmes in front of a specially invited audience of young musicians. And at the end of each programme, we left the tape running and discussed a few ideas with them.
We got some really interesting questions and we thought we'd like to share them with you. So this programme features a selection of edited highlights from these discussions.
We start off by talking about equipment. Now this is of major interest to anyone who plays in a band because in rock music the technology is as important as the technique or the theory.
What sort of qualities would you look for when buying electric guitars and amplifiers?
Electric guitars and amplifiers?
Yeah.
If I was going to buy an electric guitar, I think this is if you're, what sort of money are you talking about? Something not too expensive?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're buying a cheap electric guitar, the two things that you've got to check is, first of all, that the action isn't too high. Because you want to, do you know what I mean by action? That's the height of the strings above the fingerboard. I've used to have a guitar where I could actually get my hands underneath the strings, between the strings and the fingerboard. If you've got an action, a really high action like that, it's very difficult to fret the chords, you know, especially if you want to do bar chords and stuff like that. The other thing is that it's good to make sure that the tuning is, the guitar won't go out of tune and that the intonation is okay. Do you know what I mean by intonation?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
It means that it's actually in tune all the way up the neck. So you can try that out by playing the harmonics, say here, and then playing the note. If the two notes are the same, then you know that the intonation is in up the neck. So that's that's the two very basic things to look for. I mean, you get people who go into a guitar shop and go and look down the neck and do all that kind of stuff. And it's often good to bring a friend with you who's a bit more experienced or something like that if you don't know about those kind of things, because it's difficult to learn it, you know, if you're not very experienced or anything. And as regards amps, one good thing really is just to plug in, turn it right up and play a chord or something to make sure it doesn't distort too much. I mean, something like that. If you haven't got too much money to spend, it's sometimes best to buy second hand because you get a better bargain that way.
The action on my guitar is too high and I can't lower my bridge anymore. So is it possible to have my neck raised, or do I just need a new guitar?
Right. Well, I would ask you, what kind of guitar? Have you got an electric or an acoustic guitar?
Electric.
Right. Is it a metal bridge then?
Yes.
Yes. Sometimes if you can't get the strings any lower and you're not getting... Are you getting buzzing on the neck? Or you're not got to that stage yet?
If I put it at its lowest, I get buzzing, yes.
Right. That's the problem really. Sometimes you can actually get the strings lower than the bridge will allow. If you've got a wooden bridge, you can actually sometimes shave off the bottom of it like an acoustic guitar if it's one of those removable ones. If it's a metal bridge, you can't actually get the neck raised, but you can sometimes alter the angle of the neck, which can help with the action.
Yeah, can we use one type of amplifier for all different types of instruments? bass, keyboards, drums and lead.
Well, the thing is that all the instruments like bass, keyboards and guitar use different frequencies, you see. The guitar's got a mid to high range of frequencies. The keyboard's got a very wide range, from very bass frequency right up to the top, and the bass guitar tends to use the lower frequencies. The thing is that most amps are designed to take a particular set of frequencies, and the speakers as well. The thing is that you can probably put anything through an amp if it's at a fairly low volume. But once you get onto stage, or you've got to turn up a bit to play with the band, if you put a bass through a guitar amp, you'll find that you'll get distortion a lot, and you can actually blow the speaker if you're not careful. So I'd say that each of the instruments that you mentioned need a particular kind of amplifier really to get the best sound out of them. But if you're not playing too loud, it doesn't matter too much.
Yeah, if you can't afford a big drum kit setup, what is the smallest drum kit setup you can use in a band?
Well, traditionally you start with a snare drum. With a snare drum you can play rhythms, and then I would say next probably a hi-hat, because you can actually play, you've actually got a rhythm, then a bass drum, and you've got so you've got your basic rock rhythms there, and then perhaps a cymbal. With a cymbal, you've got everything that you need, really. So with just that basic thing, you can go out. I mean, I've actually been out and done gigs with just that basic setup. And the interesting thing is that if you've got that and you haven't got all this other stuff to, to divert you, it's amazing by the end of the evening just how much you can get out of just these simple things. You know, you can. I mean, some of the things we've seen in the series, you can instead of playing a rhythm, you can play it on the snare drum. You can go. You know what I mean? You can get a thing out of the snare drum. You can play things on the hi-hat. You can cross your hands and go. Let me think. And go. I'll do that one again. You can get the hi-hat going. You can, another one, a reggae thing. You can cross the hands a bit, you know. Things like that.
What type of sticks are best for quite hard rock drumming?
Well, the choice of your stick is personal preference. For heavy playing, obviously you want a pretty heavy stick to give you a heavy, thick sound. But what you've got to watch is, if you get something that's like a telegraph pole, 2 minutes into the set, your wrists are going to be done in, right? You won't be able to go on. So you've got to get something that's comfortable for you, right? That's the first thing. The other thing is that a lot of people use a stick the wrong way around, like this. So that gives you a bit of a thicker sound. So that's one thing. The other thing is that the actual material that the sticks are made of, most sticks are made of either hickory or oak. And so obviously the better the quality of the stick you can get, the better off you are, because the heavier you get to play, the more sticks you're going to snap. So those are the three things you're looking for, really. One, you don't want to tire yourself out. Two, you want to get a good stick. And three, if you need to, don't be frightened to use them that way around,
Something else which is of great concern to anyone playing in a band is technique. No matter how experienced musicians are, they're always looking for ways of improving the way that they play. We start off by looking at the guitar.
How do you build up the strength in your left hand to place down a bar chord?
Yeah, this is a problem that a lot of guitarists find from moving from playing the open chords, then moving on to bar chords. The thing to do is, I think that when you first start playing bar chords, it's very easy to put too much pressure onto the neck, and so that you're gripping the neck like this, and it means that your whole hand has kind of almost got a cramp in it, and you feel you can't move. The thing to do is I'll try and show you, put your thumb behind here, and so you're actually gripping the neck between your first finger and your thumb like that, and also put the first finger slightly to the side, because that's a good way of doing it. And then when you're actually playing, bring your elbow into the side like that. Do you see what I'm getting at? So your first finger is at the side, you bring your elbow in like that, and then just sort of grip the string between your first finger and your thumb, like that. I mean, it's a question of practice, because when you first do it, it's really difficult. It took me ages to be able to do it. And then just gradually, it'll just come. And practice just the bar first of all, like that. Just try and get a bar. And one last point about bar chords is they're actually sometimes a bit easier to do higher up the neck. You see what I mean? If you're trying to hold down like an F chord here, that's actually a very hard chord to hold down. So try it on something like an A chord. Something's a little bit easier.
What are the best strings for rich, deep bass sounds, but sharp, clear top notes?
It really depends on what kind of style of guitar playing that you're after. If you're not into bending strings very much, then you get a better sound having heavier strings on. And that's what you're talking about, a sort of richer, deeper sound. But most guitarists want to bend strings. So usually you have to sort of compromise between the sound and between having lighter strings so that you can bend them easily. You can get sets called skinny tops, heavy bottoms, which actually have got light strings on the top and heavier strings on the bottom three. So you could possibly, you know, put a set on like that, so you could bend the top strings easily and still get that richness at the bottom.
How do you use the tremolo arm?
Well, you can use it for a lot of different things. I mean, basically what it is it's attached to the block, there's a tremolo block inside this guitar, and the strings are attached to it. And by moving it up and down, you're altering the pitch of the strings. And you can use it to sustain notes. If you're playing very loudly, you can create feedback by using the it almost acts like an aerial, I think, sometimes. And you can use it for vibrato. Actually, we've got a really good clip of Gary Moore showing all different ways of using the tremolo arm.
If it's loud, right, and you sort of, I mean, like, if you're going to sort of play that stuff, sometimes you kind of got the presence really high up, right, and like the treble on, like, as high as it will go before it starts feeding back. So if you're going to do that, and you're going to start, like, you're going to get all these nasty sort of clicks, right, so, like, when you hit the note down on the fretboard, ain't you going to sort of make a big, so, like, so you're playing, like... Sorry.
What are you saying? The sound? How do you start?
Yeah.
The extra sound.
Yeah, it's like so you're playing that fast, right? And you've got it cranked up. Yeah, you're going to get all that sort of.
It's because you've got to damp all the time.
Oh, you dampen it, right?
That's right. Because, for example, like it's harder on an open string because it's very difficult to. I don't know if I can do it now. Actually, hold on. If I didn't dampen, I'll try and do it. Try and do it, Tom. That's that damping, you see. You go. I'm actually using. Could you hear the difference there? Yeah. It's just that all guitarists, they've got all these little tricks and things. You know, I mean, I've only worked it out after I'd learnt to do it, just by ear almost. But you use either this part of your hand, for example, to dampen some of the lower notes, or you can use a bit of your thumb. On this, in your left hand, you can actually use your bring your thumb over, or use a finger you're not using. I mean, every guitarist has got their own different ways of doing it. Yeah. This is the most usual way.
That point Deirdre mentioned about damping, well, that applies to bass as well. Now, take care that the left hand and the right hand act as dampers all the time. At the left hand, notice when I'm playing the E, I'm covering the rest of the strings. And as I move across, the thumb comes round, and the same there. Now, with the right hand, watch what I do. I rest the thumb on the pickup, and then I play the E string. When I play the A, I move the thumb across, and then on the D I move the thumb across, And notice the thumb is holding down 2 strings. And then when I play the G, the thumb is holding all of them down. Right. Now, damping is a combination of both of those techniques all the time. Watch this. But the bass technique that created most interest was the slap. And in Programme 6, we showed you how to do it. We also told you about Larry Graham, who took the slap and turned it into the funk style we know today. But what you may not realise is that the technique of slap has been around a long time. It was originally developed on double bass, but on that instrument it sounds anything but funky. Check out Lee Rocker from the Stray Cats.
There's 2 different slap techniques really in that. They're both kind of similar. One is the single slap. And what you do is you get your fingers on the way down, caught underneath, and slap it against the neck once, which is for a bass part like something like this, I guess. And there's the double slap, which is the same thing with your fingers underneath, but slapping it twice. Which is, you can just do it, start it slowly. Mix them really, you don't have to do.
Drum technique could easily fill a whole series, but since we haven't got that, we're just going to look at a couple of points that came up.
What's the difference in sound between double and single strokes?
Well, doubles require a bit of bounce from the drum. So on your tom-toms, which are spongier, you probably find that it's not so good to use doubles, you're better off with singles. But on the snare drum, which is generally harder, it's sometimes a good idea to use doubles. For instance, it's easier to play 5 strokes as what's called a 5-stroke roll, which is, than it is to do single strokes. I mean, if you do it fast, it's easier to go, which is a roll, you know, left, right, left, right, than to go single strokes. See what I mean? And the other important thing about singles and doubles, which is, you know, where the paradiddle starts, is that sometimes you'll go around the kit and you'll find yourself down here, and the only way you can get, if you're going hand to hand, the only way you can get back up is to cross over. You see, if you're going, you want to come back up. So if you put a double in there, you can get back, you can go. See what I mean? So you can get you out of trouble like that. And that's why you need that sort of flexibility, so you can get anywhere you want on the kit.
How often do the drums have to be tuned to whatever sound you want it?
The thing that you have to do with the drums, which you don't have so much on the bass and the guitar, is that you might have to adjust your tune into the acoustics of the room, or the stage, or the studio, or whatever you go into, you know. So, I mean, you might have them sounding great, and then you go onto a stage, you know, you go and set up, and you start playing, it sounds terrible. And you may very well have to adjust then, you know. And the same in the studio, you might have to change the sound a bit to suit the acoustics of where you are, you know. Again, you've got to not be frightened of experimenting with that. Even though there might be roughly a particular area that you keep within, you know, to get your own sound. But the other thing that's just happening now is that you're getting these little, on the tension bolt, right, you know, the bolt that screws the head down, they're getting locking nuts now on those, so that once you've got it to the right tension, you can put this locking nut on and it'll stop the bolt coming undone. So that's a great idea that I've seen some of the manufacturers doing now.
Lastly, we talked about musical theory. Throughout the series, we tried to show you how it can actually help you and give you new ideas. However, some musicians were still pretty confused.
When you come up with sort of theory terms, yeah, like you sort of mention a third or a fifth or an inversion or whatever the hell it is, what exactly does all that mean? Because you kind of lose me there.
You see, now, what you've got to think of is there's 2 separate things. There are scales and there are chords. Now, scales are just notes going up and down, basically, one at a time. Now, a chord is either 2 or more notes played at the same time. Whenever you get any 2 notes played at the same time, it creates a kind of harmony. And when you get notes played one after the other, sort of dum, broken up, that's a scale. Now, there's lots of different types of scales. Now, in the sort of music that we play, all the names for the scales and for the chords come from the major scale. So when we talk about a third, we're talking about a first note in a scale, which is number 1, and the third, which is the third step in the scale. So if you went 1, 2, 3, you get to the third note, and if you play those 2 notes together, you get this. And that'd be a major third.
Yeah. So what's an inversion?
An inversion, right. Well, a chord can appear as root, third, and fifth. Now, on an instrument like a piano or on guitar, you can play all those notes at the same time. So could you play root, third, and fifth, Deirdre?
Yeah. So I was here, for example.
Right, yeah, right. Now, when those notes appear with the lowest note as the root, the next note as the third, and the top note as the fifth, that is called a root position. Now, Deirdre, could you play a third, a fifth, and an eighth? Right, now, those are the same 3 notes, but this time the order's changed. The note that was at the bottom has gone to the top, and you've got third, fifth, and octave this time. That's called a first inversion.
Yeah.
Now, it's still the same 3 notes, but you've just swapped the order around.
So it's
And
this.
then, now, the last order that you get, this is called a second inversion, is you have the fifth, which this one at the bottom, and then you've got the octave above that, and then the third above that. Could you play that for us,
this
Deirdre?
one.
And now root position,
Back again.
first inversion, and second inversion. That's what we mean by inversions.
During the programme you showed an A9th chords, and I tried to play that at home, but I found it very difficult. I don't know if I was looking at and trying to play the wrong notes, but if you could just show me again.
Yeah, do you mean the, was it this sort of shape?
Yeah.
Wasn't that shape? Right. I'll just go over again how to do it. Using your third finger, bar across the top 3 strings, like that. Then this finger here plays the fret below on the 4th string, right? You see that or not? Oh, you can't, you haven't got a monitor. Can you see that? So I've got my third finger barring the top 3 strings. Then you've got your first finger comes down and plays the 4th string, a fret below. And then your second finger, this is where you probably can't see what I was doing, the second finger comes over and plays that root note. So you've actually got, on this string and on these 3, you're actually playing along the same fret. You see that?
Yeah.
And it's only on the 4th string you're playing a fret below. Like that. Try again and come back again and see if it's any better.
Well, we hope you've learnt as much from the series as we have. We've had great fun doing it. We'd like to thank all the musicians who agreed to be interviewed. We'd like to thank all the studio audiences that came along each week, even though we had to keep going over the same things over and over again. But most of all, we'd like to thank you for watching.